Alrighty guys, the first game of round 4 of the Rugby Championship is now over, and it's a bit of a blowout. People wanted a response from the All Blacks from their loss to Argentina last week, and I feel like we got it today. Another early morning game over here in the UK, slightly better this week. It was 8 a.m. start rather than 6 a.m. I'm very grateful for an extra couple of hours in bed. Nighttime game over in New Zealand though, but New Zealand not looking sleepy. An absolutely fantastic game from them. 7 tries. The scoreboard began to get ridiculous to try and make these graphics as the game was going on, so they're being very, very impressed with that. There's a lot to talk about in this game. I feel like this video could be like an hour long, so we probably won't be going over completely everything. But as always, we'll start off by talking about the first half, going over some thoughts on the game and some of the scores, and then afterwards we'll move on to talk about the second half. So starting with the first half then, New Zealand really showed they were just here to play. It came straight from the kickoff. We just saw the pure intensity New Zealand started playing with, and to be honest, it lasted for the full game. We were seeing in the 84th minute how much Ardie Savea was still trying to smash through. First point came from Mwunga's boot. Took them to 3-0 after 2 minutes. There was an early penalty. Penalties were a bit of an issue for Argentina in this game, although surprisingly towards the end it actually got quite even in terms of the penalty count, but New Zealand just making the most of it. The try scoring coming. Now, try scoring started in the 10th minute from Ethan de Groot. With a lovely little pick and go pass. It was the first proper attack from New Zealand since the first minute, really. The first minute was all New Zealand. There was a bit of kicking for the first 10, and then eventually New Zealand got back on it. And we saw this a couple of times. The game slowing down a little bit, getting into a bit of kicking tennis. Then eventually New Zealand just said, right, let's start playing again now. And they just go on the offensive and get themselves over for a try. Happened an awful lot. Started out with a little kick over the defence from David Havili. This was working really well in the first half. These little chip kicks just behind the defensive line, just completely removing the aggressive level of defence that we've seen from Argentina in the past. Was recovered by Will Jordan, managed to get it back. New Zealand took it all the way to the line, and then there was a lovely flat pass from Aaron Smith to a crash ball. Ethan de Groot, hard man to stop, did get himself over the try line, successfully converted by Mwunga. The next try coming only 9 minutes later, again from the same style. They got the little chip over the top. This came from Will Jordan. This time New Zealand carried it all the way up the field. Again, speed, recycling at the breakdown, much better this week from New Zealand. They spread the ball out wide, and we see Caleb Clark go over in the corner. Both teams are playing strong for the first 20. It was really intense, to be fair. Both teams really going at it. There was a lot of kicking, but it was more trying to feel each other out, just trying to gain that little bit of space. But New Zealand were pretty much going to be winning that kicking game. There was a couple of times we saw the Argentinian kick going a bit too far, bobbling over the dead ball line, going back for a scrum. The set piece from New Zealand was so good in this game. They just couldn't really be afford to be doing those little mistakes. It took 25 minutes for Argentina to really get into the game. We saw their first attack coming in that 24-25 minute area, managing to work up the field, getting a couple of phases together. They've been struggling so much of this game from handling errors, completely ruining their own attack. They actually managed to get on the front foot. They managed to keep going forward. A couple of penalties coming against New Zealand allowed them to get themselves all the way into that New Zealand 22. There was a big maul that came from a kick to the corner. However, New Zealand did manage to survive and exit out of that attack. It took Argentina half an hour to actually get some scores on the board. The boots of Buffelli being the only score of the game at that half-hour marker. Just penalties again coming from New Zealand. When they were put under pressure, penalties were beginning to arise. It was worth it at this point for Argentina just to have something on the board. I mean, if they didn't get that, it would have ended in a 0 score. So had to get that one. 17-3 at this point, half hour into the game, and that is unfortunately the last time we're going to be talking about Argentina actually scoring. There was another try that actually got disallowed for New Zealand. Taucaeo getting over on a pick and go try over the Argentina line. Now this one had a bit of a weird talking point. There was a number of penalties leading up to this, and at the end of this, Lavanini got a yellow card, which you'll see on the board over there. However, they ended up calling for an earlier knock-on infringement against Lomax. So we went back, tried disallowed, and there was a bit of talk between commentators talking about whether or not Lavanini should have actually come back on, because obviously this knock-on happened about 3-4 phases before. It was about 2 or 3 penalties before we actually got to that point. So whether he should have come on, it's something that doesn't really get discussed a lot in World Rugby. I'd quite like to know what the rules are around that sort of thing. If a yellow card's handed out when we go back a couple of phases before that penalty would even have meant to have happened had the ref noticed the initial foul, would there have been a yellow card? So I'm not sure about that one. I think the penalty was coming. I think if it wasn't Lavanini, someone else would have got a yellow card at that point. So I think, unfortunately, Lavini just fell on the wrong side. Did go away a lot of penalties himself in this game, though, to be fair. So probably not the worst person. But Ioane did actually manage to recover those points shortly afterwards. Only 3 minutes later, Ioane getting himself over the try. 5-metre scrum from New Zealand was looking good throughout this entire game. They love this sort of set play where Ardie Savea is picking the ball up from the back, or the scrum half picking it back up. Offload it once, first receiver, just smashing over the line. Is exactly what we got to see for Ioane to get over. And another successful conversion from Mo'unga. So we go in at half-time, 24 points to 3, and it didn't really look like that point scoring was going to be stopping anytime soon. In terms of the half-time notes, I wrote down New Zealand have been dominant in possession for most of the half. Intensity so much more impactful than we got to see last week. Those little errors they were having last week that was messing them up, we just didn't see it this week at all. Argentina handling errors are just letting them down in their attacks. There were so many knock-ons and just drop balls and passes not getting to who they wanted it to go to, completely ruining their own attack. The New Zealand handling, on the other hand, was extremely good for this entire game. By the end of the game, there's only 3 handling errors, even in the rain, which is really impressive to see. They've worked on that a lot, as we sort of expected. I did mention that in the preview video. I expected that to be sorted out before this weekend. They certainly brought it. Argentina just need to hold on to possession and build some phases. They were going 2 or 3 phases and messing up, or they were just trying these kicks that weren't really leading into anything. I just wanted to see them hold on to the ball a little bit more. And then from New Zealand, I just said, I think they want to change it up in the second half, remove some of these chip kicks now. They did quite a lot in that first half. They were working, but as we got towards the end of that first half, we did begin to see Argentina getting a bit more wise to it, slowing down their defensive line a little bit. It was stopping as many kicks actually working for them. I tried to have a bit of a count. I think I saw about 3 work out of about 6 or 7 chip kicks. So it's not actually a very high percentage that was working for them, but the ones that did lead to points. But I just wanted to see that stop a little bit in the second half. Some of the stats, a little bit surprising. Possession 54 to 46 at halftime to New Zealand. I thought it felt like a lot more. Felt like they really had hands on the ball. Territory was 35% New Zealand and 65% Argentina. Kind of mad, to be fair. And then turnovers conceded 3 to New Zealand, 9 to Argentina. So just even when Argentina have the ball in their hands, New Zealand were just so aggressive in that breakdown, managing to turn the ball over. Really, really good work from them. On to the second half then, where it all got a bit mad, and I had to try and work out how on earth to actually fit this all on the graphics. It was actually Argentina that started out stronger. They actually had a really nice attack for the first 5 minutes of the game. They got some phases together. There was a few less handling errors. They managed to actually build a bit of an attack. New Zealand defence was holding up really well, though didn't actually manage to concede any points and managed to have a quite clean exit, to be fair. At this point, Lavanini comes back on in the 46th minute from his yellow card, and immediately, first action after the yellow card, gives another penalty away. Just absolutely brutal for Argentina. Gave the penalty to Mo'unga, got another 3 points, takes them to a 27-3 lead. We did have a bit of a momentum shift around the 50th minute marker. New Zealand went on a big attack. They managed to get all the way to the Argentina try line. They had a couple of pick and goes, really trying to get over that try line, just couldn't quite get there. We see one of the New Zealand players pick up the ball, dive for that try line, doesn't get it, gets himself isolated, and we see Pablo Matera getting the jackal penalty literally on his own try line. Absolutely fantastic. Managed to save them. I think that rocked New Zealand a little bit. I really think they just thought a try was going to be coming there. This then led to a couple of on-the-bounce penalties going against New Zealand. There was 3 or 4 in a row, which we just got to see. Argentina moved 90 metres up the field. They got all the way from their own try line all the way up to the New Zealand 5-metre line. They went for a couple of kick to corners, a couple of big driving mauls. Couldn't quite get over the line, but eventually it did lead to a yellow card for Fletcher Newell, who'd only really just come on. He'd only been on for about 5 or 6 minutes. Just collapsing that maul, unfortunately. Someone had to go to the bin, ended up being Fletcher Newell. They went for another kick to the corner. They went some bit more big attacks, got some more penalties. Kick to the corner again. This driving maul was getting so close. They just couldn't get it over. And 50 to 60 minutes of the game was all Argentina at this point. They were looking really, really good. But New Zealand managed to hold out, don't concede anything, defensive rate, absolutely brilliant from them. And then they turned it back round immediately. We get to the next try from Geordie Barrett. New Zealand on a massive attack from their own half. We saw Ioane just carve a beautiful line running all the way up the field. managed to get a bit of a scramble defence together, did shut him down. Sam Cane picks it up himself, who actually had a much better game this week. I've talked a lot in the preview videos about Sam Cane being a bit quiet, much better in this game. Made his own little break, got that ball out wide to Barrett, and got himself over for the try. And then it just begins the waterfall. We had the Ardi Sarvea try, who absolutely deserved the try in this game. Thought he had an immense game. From a 5-metre maul, had a nice little breakaway, had a superb game, and just managed to get himself over as well. Geordie Barrett taking over conversions at this point. Did miss that one, but at this point they're 39-3 up. Not the worst thing in the world to begin to miss kicks from there. Brodie Retallick had come on at this point and managed to get himself a try in the 74th minute. New Zealand just on a relentless attack. This Argentina defence just beginning to weaken towards their own try line now. The pick and goes were just beginning to kill them. There was another pick and go try there that got him in the corner. And then the final try of the game coming from yet another penalty led to a scrum for New Zealand on the Argentina 5-metre line. Really hard to stop, as we saw all game. Ardi Sarvea pick up the ball from the back, runs it round. First receiver happens to be Beauden Barrett this time. Sees him get on that crash ball. Didn't fancy the pass out to Will Jordan. Took it himself. Got over for the try line and that successful conversion as well, where we will see New Zealand have a 53-3 win. Absolutely monstrous from those guys. In terms of the stats then, some that really sort of blow your mind. Handling errors in this game. In the rain, New Zealand 3... and Argentina 14. You know, that is a massive amount of difference in handling errors. New Zealand worked really well, and they weren't entirely playing safe. They were going through set plays. There were a lot of passes, using the backs a lot, using a lot of these passes, but yeah, handling errors just kept to a minimum. Final possession 53-47, so the possession actually began to even out somehow. I don't even know how that works. I thought they played really dominantly, the All Blacks. And then finally, number of penalties, 11-11, so equal number of penalties, but you know, that final scoreboard, you know, speaks for itself, how they're using these penalties to actually score points. Now, Argentina could have taken some more threes here and there, but it wouldn't have made a great deal of difference to the overall scoreline. Maybe you would have seen 53-12 or something. You know, at that point, you just want to be seeing tries to try and close up that scoreboard a bit. But an absolutely dominant game from New Zealand. Absolutely felt like they deserved the win, as is normal on Sky Sports over here in the UK. They don't mention a man of the match, but to be honest, it's a bit of a take your pick. There were so many people playing really well. I thought Mwanga had a really good game. Ardi Sarvea played well. Sam Cane played well. Rico Ioane, another name you could throw in there. To be fair, there's a lot of people that could have a man of the match for that New Zealand team. But of course, guys, let me know what you thought of the game down in the comments. I always enjoy having a bit of a read through them to get some other people's perspectives. Of course, we've got the Wallabies versus Springboks game coming up very, very soon. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that one too. I'll be doing a match report for that, so make sure you are subscribed to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.